Chapter 1. Introduction. Amanda exemplified many qualities people generally consider necessary for a good student: organization, attendance, intelligence. Yet, she was struggling to pass algebra when her friends seemed to have no problem. Amanda had never struggled in school before. She wasn't happy with her grade. She knew she could do better, and she really wanted to. After struggling through most of the school year, Amanda finally came to me. Zach had not been in school for over 40 years, and his grades when he was in school last time were not something that he was proud of. He came back to finish his degree and finally achieve his dream of being an elementary school teacher, preferably teaching second grade. But he was never very good at school. His grades this time weren't much better, and with the comprehensive teacher test looming, Zach worried that he would not be able to graduate again. With nowhere else to turn, Zach came to me. I am a tutor. While I have my academic focuses, my specialization is with students who are struggling in the classroom. Academic success is not as easy as the movies make it out to be. I know this because I have spent years helping both myself and others work their way through their education and towards their personal goals. I help students build the skills they need to succeed and teach them how to apply those skills to other classes and life. School is the preparation ground for life, so I help those struggling with school, whether they be completely drowning or just needing a little focused attention. My goal for this book is to give you access to the same knowledge and support that I give my students. Education is one of the most important things that a person can pursue, and there is no reason that you can't have the support you need to succeed. Of course, success takes a lot of work. I have met very few students who are able to thrive in the long term who do not put in significant amounts of work. This book will guide you through a whole class, from the first day to the last, giving you advice and lessons to remember as you work towards your goals. If you put in the work now, you will set yourself up for success. The first chapter focuses on the classroom itself. Academic success begins and ends here, so it's the perfect place to start. Walk into the first day prepared. Have your planner and all your materials ready and with you. Know what class you are going to, and if there is anything you can read in advance, like a syllabus or the introduction to your textbook, you should do so. Once you get to class, try to sit in the first couple of rows, although anywhere in the T-zone is good. Look around and try to make a couple of friends who seem to be good students like you. These people can serve as your study buddies and safety net throughout the class. As the class proceeds, ask your teacher questions. Don't interrupt the lesson, but when your teacher calls for questions, you should ask about whatever you are unsure of. If you are uncomfortable speaking in front of everyone, ask your teacher after class. Your education is essential, so you should chase it. As the lessons begin, you should take notes. I usually suggest writing your notes by hand if possible because your brain remembers more of what you write than what you type. As you are writing your entries in your notebook, organize them so they are easier to read later. It takes more work during class, but studying and learning are easier later if you manage your notes while taking them. The second chapter focuses on the art of studying. It is where most people will focus their anxiety and attempts at self-improvement, and for a good reason. Without the dedicated practice that studying allows, people cannot learn new material effectively. A lot of the study skills I teach my students revolve around how the brain handles repetition. Therefore, to have effective study sessions, I suggest that my students pick a specific area or two and designate them as study spaces. For me, these spaces have been a particular seat in my kitchen, a certain table in the back of the library, and my favorite coffee shop. Having a specific location helps your brain settle into the rhythm of studying, making it easier for you to focus on what you are learning. As you plan your study sessions, you should also consider how you need to manage your time. Pull out your planner and set aside a couple of hours every day to devote to your studying. If possible, try to be consistent. Study at the same time every day. Of course, the actual art of studying looks different for everyone and every subject. I usually advise using flashcards for things that need to simply be memorized, such as vocabulary words and historical dates. I suggest practice problems for subjects like math, which can usually be found easily on the internet. I also advise students to read over their notes right before they go to bed, because their brain will process them while they sleep. All studying techniques require you to put in some repetitious work, but studying in this way helps you to truly learn the material and achieve your academic goals. The third chapter focuses on writing essays and papers. I have helped many students learn how to write reports, and a good paper is often a non-negotiable part of a good grade. The first step to writing a good essay is knowing what you are writing about. Sometimes your teacher will give you a topic. Sometimes your teacher will tell you to pick a topic. Either way, you need to know what you are writing about because your topic will drive your research. Start your research broadly. I usually recommend having 2 more sources than the required page count of your paper, but this is not a hard and fast rule. Read deeply and widely, and make a note of where you find quotations and specific information. You will need this later when you cite your sources. Once you have completed your research, write out your thesis. A thesis is the central argument of your paper, and all good papers have one. Then outline your essay. Note what each paragraph will be about, and place some of your research into your outline so you remember where you wanted to use your evidence. At this point, now that you have a thesis and a researched outline, you can write your paper. This first draft is your rough draft, so it doesn't have to be perfect. You can make your essay better during the revision and editing stages. Revising is when you change the content of your paper. It can be rewriting paragraphs or strengthening a sentence. Editing is when you verify your report is technically accurate by checking your spelling and grammar. Once you have finished revising and editing, read over your paper once more for continuity. Remember, writing good papers takes time. There is no set amount of time for writing an essay, but for your first one, plan for 2 weeks of work, including research. As you become more comfortable writing papers, you will learn how long you need to complete each piece well. Plan out your research and writing time just like you plan out your studying time. If you put in the work, you will set yourself up to write a successful paper. The fourth chapter focuses on taking tests. Tests are often a source of anxiety for students, but I believe that tests do not need to be stressful with the proper test-taking tools and the right preparations. Instead, tests are an opportunity to prove that you know your stuff. Tests are where you demonstrate that you have achieved your academic goals. Many of the students I work with have told me that taking tests is stressful. They read a question and panic because they don't immediately know the answer. It usually spirals out and affects their ability to perform on the entire test, not just on that one question. The first lesson I teach my students is to breathe while they take their tests. Panicking restricts your breathing usually, limiting the amount of oxygen that goes to your brain because the oxygen is being diverted elsewhere. Taking a deep breath helps. The next lesson is to read the question carefully. Make sure you know what exactly it is asking for. If you are still stuck at this point, write down everything you know about this question or problem. It is especially helpful in math and science, but it can be used in all disciplines. Writing everything you do know helps you focus on what you do not. Usually, my students find that writing what they understand helps them realize they already know the answer. There are many different types of tests, and every kind of test has its own tips. On multiple-choice tests, if you do not know the answer, use the answer choices to help you. Eliminate what is obviously wrong. Guess and check the answers with the problem. On essay tests, make sure you know what the question is asking and structure your thesis with as many keywords from the question as possible. Jot down a quick outline to make sure you stay on topic, and then write. Don't worry about your essay being perfect. Your teacher is not expecting perfection. On matching tests, use the answers to help you figure out any questions you don't know. Treat matching tests like multiple-choice tests, only with more options to sort through. On true-false tests, read each statement carefully. The whole statement is false, even if one part is false. On short answer tests, treat each open question as a tiny essay test. Understand what the question is asking and only answer that question. If your short answer test has fill in the blank and you cannot remember the correct term, do not leave it blank. Instead, write down everything you do remember about that term. The key to taking tests well is to demonstrate how prepared and knowledgeable you are. You won't be perfect, but tests are one of the areas where you can display the hard work you have put into achieving academic success. The 5th chapter focuses on the other projects that come along in the academic environment. These are things like presentations, speeches, and group work. All these projects come with their struggles and rewards, and I want you to be as prepared as possible. When you are crafting a presentation, try to think about it as a verbal essay. You have a main point you are trying to make, a thesis, so everything in the presentation should support that central thesis. Organize your thoughts into distinctive categories and move logically from one to the next. Giving a good presentation depends upon you doing the necessary work and preparation ahead of time. If your presentation has a visual component, like a PowerPoint, treat your visual component as a tool to help you, not as a standalone item that can give your presentation without you. Use 10 words or fewer per slide, although this is not a hard and fast rule, and pick pictures that support what you are saying. If you are using a poster, you can use complete sentences, but try to use more images and charts than paragraphs. Have clear structures within your posters, such as directional arrows or color blocks, to help your audience move through your poster with ease. The visual component of your presentation should help your audience better understand what you are presenting and help your audience pay more attention to you. As you are giving your oral presentation, remember to breathe. Many people experience stage fright in some way or another, so you are not alone. The only way to overcome stage fright is to confront it by talking in front of other people repeatedly. Practice your presentation in front of people you trust so that you can build your confidence. Practice standing up straight and acting like you're confident. As you give your presentation itself, look at people's ears, nose, or forehead if you cannot bring yourself to look them in the eyes. Remind yourself that you have practiced this before, but don't expect perfection. I have never seen or given a perfect presentation, but I have seen and given many good ones. There are other projects that arise in the academic environment, and one of the most dreaded is the group project. Group projects usually are sources of conflict because there is an unequal distribution of responsibility and an unwillingness to collaborate. Of course, you cannot produce a successful group project on your own. All you can do is facilitate the necessary environment for a successful group project and hope that your group mates will also encourage a collaborative environment. To better ensure equal distribution of responsibility, write down each aspect of the project and who will be responsible for what. It leads to fewer conflicts later on. Also, make sure that any dispute in the group does not come from you. Do not attempt to undermine anyone else's work, and do your work to the best of your ability. If your group project is falling apart, reach out to your teacher. Your teacher may or may not know what is happening in your group, but can usually offer advice, assistance, or assurance of equitable grades. However, I have only had a few groups that have needed that drastic of a solution. Most group projects can be managed well with honest collaboration and healthy conflict management. Like every other relationship you're in, group projects take work, but that work often leads to success. The 6th chapter covers some of the frequently asked questions that I don't answer in the first 5 chapters. This section will cover topics such as staying healthy, studying online, and avoiding procrastination. The foundation of good study skills is your health. You should never sacrifice your health and well-being for a grade. That means you need to take time to get enough sleep. Experts recommend at least 8 hours and sometimes more. That you need to take time to eat nutritious food, and that you need to try to meet your emotional needs adequately. Emotional needs can be met in various ways: spending time with friends, enjoying a movie, exercising, talking with a therapist, engaging in creative expression, etc. If you find that your schoolwork is dominating your life to the point that you are not healthy, reevaluate your expectations for yourself. Once you have your priorities straightened back out, you will feel less stressed and more focused. As technology continues to develop, we see a shift towards online education. Online classes allow for more flexibility, but they do not offer the same access to teachers or the structure that traditional courses provide. To compensate for this, you need to be self-motivated and dedicated to keeping your study schedule. Planning out specific study times is more important than ever in an increasingly virtual world. Keep to your study schedule as strictly as you keep to your work schedule. You wouldn't just skip a day of work, so don't just skip a study session. Many teachers are available for questions via email, so use that. Don't be self-conscious about sending too many emails. If you were in a traditional classroom, you would ask and listen to these questions there. Recently, however, I have helped a few students who are taking online classes with non-responsive teachers. It is frustrating. In the case of non-responsive teachers, I usually suggest that my students review the material again. If the answer is not there or is unclear, then use a search engine to pull up videos and articles that discuss whatever you are confused about. Studying online sometimes means you end up teaching yourself. So I say that you should use all the resources that studying online provides. You might just be surprised how many people are waiting to help you. This 6th chapter will also discuss procrastination. In my experience, procrastination has very little to do with laziness and a great deal to do with anxiety and stress. Procrastination is a form of self-sabotage and usually comes from a fear of failure. The thought process is generally along the lines of, if I don't do this assignment, then I can't fail at it. I understand the anxiety of procrastination, and I have experienced how difficult it is to overcome it. When my students come to me for help with overcoming procrastination, the first thing I do is tell them they have already taken the first step: build a support system. Ask 2 or 3 people you trust to keep you accountable for your work. Your support system will give you the gentle push you need to keep yourself on schedule. The next step is to break the assignment into achievable pieces with personal due dates. Focus only upon the attainable part, and you will find that it is easier to finish the small goal if you are not stressing about the large goal. Finally, give yourself breaks. Some people procrastinate because they are tired but won't allow themselves to rest. Procrastination is one of the body's ways of reclaiming the rest it desperately needs. When you find yourself staring blankly at the book, unable to make yourself read another word, then stop for the night. Trying to force yourself through is not healthy and only creates more stress and self-loathing. You have been studying correctly because you've read this far and put these tips and lessons into practice. Therefore, all you have left to do is beat the mind game that is procrastination. I hope you find this book, with my tips and advice, to be as helpful in your endeavors as my students have found it. In all my years of tutoring, a wide variety of students have come to me for help reaching their academic goals. The students who followed my advice and put in the work saw success. If you follow my advice and you do the work I suggest, then I am confident that you too can be successful.